chime in
I'm
on
gonna give
chat,
them that.
we'll have the team support.
I'm gonna leave it, but not at your expense, though.
I don't think
No,
it's,
you're not that
I don't
heavy.
think it's at all.
No.
Commissioners, just a reminder that we are live and we're waiting, and we'll be able to get going here shortly. Okay. All right. We will go ahead, it's 4:02. Anticipate a continued dialogue. What is it? It is Happy Thanksgiving Week. How about that?
Happy Thanksgiving week.
We have so much to be grateful for, right?
I mean,
Especially because we are in the last two sessions of our meeting time. Oh, Pedro said one.
So this work here is done.
Right. No, but I just want to start out with gratitude. Thank you each for the great amount of time that you have put in this work. So thank you all so much. My name is Stephanie Smith, and I have really, it has been a privilege to be able to serve as chairwoman of the Redistricting Commission. It has been a learning experience to be able to serve with each of the commissioners. So thank you all again. I am able to represent the 1st District at large as I reside in the Northland, and also am a co-founder and managing partner of a change management firm that is based here in Kansas City, Missouri, called Sofix Solutions, and so excited to do that. It's been a long time servant leader and worked with several nonprofits during my time, and so happy to be able to learn and grow with community. We'll continue with Commissioner Day with introductions.
Hello, thank you. My name is Reed Day. Represent the 6th District at large here on the commission. I'm an attorney in town and grew up in the Southland, South Kansas City, kind of Avila, Redbridge area, and now live in the more central part of the 6th District in Brookside area. And happy to be here serving with you all.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Kellum, 1st District Representative. Lived in the Northland the last 8 years. As I've mentioned before, worked for a Midwest-based engineering firm, 2 offices here in Kansas City, and looking forward to today's discussion and moving forward in this process. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone, as our chair mentioned, and that's it for me.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Pedro Zamora. I'm the 4th District at large representative. I am a long-term resident of Kansas City. I'm the executive director for the Hispanic Economic Development Corporation, which is a community development corporation that does sustainability planning for low to moderate income communities, and we focus on small business development.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Martin T. Rucker, the second District Representative, small business owner, and devoted public servant. Happy Thanksgiving.
I'm Quentin Adams. I'm the 3rd District Representative, lifelong Kansas City resident of the 3rd District, and I'm a lawyer here in the city.
I'm Vicki Notice. I'm representing the 4th Council District. I'm also a native of Kansas City and have lived here all my life. I have a small consulting firm that does community and urban planning here in Kansas City.
Great. We also have Commissioner Chris Llewellyn, who represents the 6th District, who has been on this journey, and also Dr. Kokithia Hill, who is representing the 5th District and has also served as a council person. And so really excited to have their expertise and perspective on this commission as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into at the beginning of every one of our commission meetings. We always like to start with common language and grounding, once again, just to demystify what the redistricting process entails and what guides us in this process. Rucker, I didn't ask you this beforehand, but would you mind
Oh, no.
giving an overview?
Sure. So we are tasked with redrawing the councilmanic district lines in the city of Kansas City, Missouri. It's to be done every 10 years with when the new census data comes out. This is usually a 9-month process. It was condensed into 9 weeks because of COVID delaying the reporting of the results. We are to draw districts that are compact and contiguous, that comply with the Voting Rights Act, and that also maintain similar populations with an option for a 10% variance from the largest to the smallest district. And I think that pretty much covers it.
So smooth, always so smooth. Thank you. Stay ready so he don't have to get ready. So with that, we'll go ahead and as Commissioner Rucker stated, we've been in this process since September the 8th, and this process has also been able to engage actively in in-person community meetings that have happened. We had 5 of those across the Kansas City, Missouri area, in addition to the web page and the opportunity for community members to join via Zoom. Thank you to those who have been engaging in that way, and then also on Channel 2 and the Kansas City, Missouri's YouTube page. So thank you all for being able to give your time. There has also been a great amount of feedback that we've been able to receive in addition to the in-person sessions, but also through the feedback forum or the feedback section on the webpage. So thank you for that as well, for your input, all of which in addition to the various community meetings that commissioners have been able to engage in that have been really helpful in us able to get proximate to the impact that community members are currently engaging with right now with the current district lines, and then also the anticipated impact as we've been able to share maps throughout the time. I believe we're updating the maps as we speak sometime between now. Thank you. Thank you so much to Beth and the communications team. You all are awesome. This is also a really great time to just thank all of the city staff, from those that work on the maps to those that are constantly on calls. Thank you all for keeping us supported with information. Any media engagements or updates that commissioners would like to share? And welcome, Commissioner Llewellyn.
Well, thank you. Sorry I'm tardy.
No worries. Any media engagements or requests? All right, hearing none. I want to thank our the various community members across Kansas City that have reached out to commissioners and asked us to come to your various meetings and other opportunities to speak with your constituents. This is part of this kind of culture of accountability that we've been talking about and ensuring that information is out about the redistricting. With that, I've sent out a timeline. We are now on November the 22nd, which is COIN final deliberation and vote. So our goal for today is to be able to walk through some of the revisions that Cal and Brian have been able to be responsive to, and with the hopes of being able to select one map for to present to council. And that way we can spend our time next week looking to finalize some key points for the presentation. So with that, Cal, I'll toss it to you to go over any revisions.
Good evening, everybody. Pull this down so people can hear me. What you should have in front of you is 6 different maps. We're really talking about 3 of them. What we basically did was try to give everybody what they were before and what the changes were. It's been our process for, I'd say, the last 4 meetings. So we're looking at map 8.43, and underneath that it's going to say 1208 to 54. Not the one that says 8.43 without that. The one that says 8.43 without it, that is what it was before.
Got it.
So we just provided both to you. And that'll be the same process for the other 2 maps. So the other one that we're looking at is 8.44 and 8.63. So one correction that I want to make right off front is we were contacted by a council member. We did have someone's dot on the wrong spot. We did correct that. And it has to do with council member, I'll just go ahead and pull up 8.43. It has to do with the council person along the Berry Road corridor. They did want us to know for sure that they did live south of Berry Road.
Thank you.
So that had been a conversation. We just wanted to correct that. It was an error on staff side. All of the maps from this point forward show that correctly.
Very good.
So 8.4.3, what we were asked to do on all of these maps was include Southmoreland community and then include two precincts, or swap two precincts. So what we'll talk real quick is both of these show the Southmoreland area added. The precincts that we're looking at are in this area, and they have to do with the Hispanic population and trying to get them better representation without impacting any of the other numbers. So we'll talk through those as much as we can. What we did with these, and it's going to be very technical in terms, is 12.08, we swapped that to District 4 and 1301 to District 3. And we'll talk through what that did. We did that on each map as we went through. We worked with Commissioner Zamora on that. Or Zamora, sorry. And what it did on this one is it kept us at 3.45 on the 10% rule. It brought us up to 19% Hispanic in District 3, 22% Hispanic in District 4, 54% Black or African in District 3, 57% in Black or African in the 5th District. That is the total of all of the changes for 8.44. I can move on to the next one, or we can stop on this one. Oh, sorry, let me talk about the size. So they went, once again, about 3.5 was the difference. District 1 has 84,185. District 2 has 85,270. District 3, 8403. District 4 is heavy here at 86,052. District 5 is heavy, 85,418. And District 6 is a little light, 86,134. But still well within our 10% rule at 3.45.
Any questions or comments, commissioners? Okay. Hearing none.
I guess I got just one. The 4th District reps have been concerned about the growth, and that was a point that had been raised over and over and over, and this one has them heavy. So I'm just interested in feedback from how you feel about that.
Yeah, heavy at 86,052, right?
Correct. Very heavy.
I'm concerned about it as a 4th District rep. I think I exchanged that in an email with Kyle and I think you were copied, Madam Commissioner. It is a concern of mine to come into a map that has such a high percentage over our goal, our target district populations. I understand the need and the continuity of keeping the neighborhoods together, but for the 4th District to be so large in numbers, as well as this 6th District being so low, we should look at that decision a little bit more closely. All neighborhoods are going to be impacted in our decisions, and we can't make everybody happy. Between Districts 3rd and 5, we're seeing almost 4 neighborhoods get divided within the mapping that we're doing today. So I just would like to take that in consideration in being so high in comparison to the other districts.
Can I ask a question and follow up?
Please.
Is it, I have a similar concern.
Scoot up to the
not
microphone.
about-
Yeah, Mike,
Sorry.
please,
Scoot up to the
microphone,
microphone.
please. We're almost done. We're almost done.
Almost there.
Almost there.
I have a similar concern, especially with 6 being light. That's what concerns me, because 6 was the lightest of all the districts when we started this process, which indicates to me that it lost more population. It did not keep pace with the population growth across the city at the rate of the other districts. So, but I don't know, are there ways to tweak it around the margins, Kyle or Brad, to address that? What would be the impact of addressing that?
So we knew this was something that this group had talked about. The one area where we looked that wasn't going to impact one of the other recommendations, which was the Hyde Park and the Southmoreland area, was up in this area. And I'm sorry, and for those that are home, this is up in the Scarrett area. You could have pushed this over a few blocks. And the impacts that has is it makes the black population in 3 and 5 go down 1%. And it also does the same with the Hispanic. So
I'm not opposed to it. I'm talking about population numbers up. But how do we
It
make
would-
6
it-
heavier?
it-
How do
it-
we make 6 heavier, I guess is what I'm saying.
the
How can we shift?
only option, without going back to a totally different version to this, would be to make some change around the 43rd Street.
If we put Southmoreland on Hyde Park back, put them into 6 instead of 4, wouldn't that lighten the population in 4 and make 6 a little bit more balanced?
That would,
By how much?
Brian, do you know off the top of your head?
1,020, I believe.
Yeah, it's,
How did the 6th district feel about that? We've gone round and round about it, so I'm not trying to reopen a can of worms. I just saw that and thought I might ask the question.
It's a valid point.
It was really the 4th district that brought up the fact that Hyde Park and stuff should be included in the 4th district. So that accommodation was there because of that. I'm not kind of neutral on the whole thing. I mean, the decision is, I guess, Vicky, would be, do you want to be heavy and include Hyde Park in the 4th? Or do you want to be a little lighter and not include Hyde Park? I mean, that's pretty much what I see.
What we've been looking for are other options besides that being the only one left on the table.
Okay.
And so there are still things that we're moving around between 3 and 4 up in Northeast. And it seems to me they're both, those were the 2 options. So I don't know whether they, I'm assuming by this we can't solve both of them. We have to pick one or the other. We've talked, I've talked with Reed and you, Chris, before about, it gets 1,000 people back into 6, but it's, Midtown neighborhoods are just a lot different than what
I
else
totally
is in
agree.
6. And so, and I know they want to stay in 4, at least that's what they've said.
So you're suggesting there's another change
There was
north of
last
the 6th
time.
district? There's something that you would like to see tweaked?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are you saying that you'd like to keep Hyde Park, but there's another area that you suggest that?
No, I'm sitting, the only other place I know of, well, there's 3 places we could make 4 lighter. On the south end, on the boundary between 3 and 4, and in the Northland on, the boundary between 2 and 4. And for several weeks, we've been playing around with all 3 of those. I'm not completely sure whether,
yeah, none of those would correct 6. And if you make the change to substitute what is from 4 to 2, then 2 becomes the heavy one. So it's really, those are the decision points you guys will be at.
I think, Vicky, I think Chris posed it right. I think is that, are you ready? Well, you think about it, we don't have to put you on the spot right here, but when you think about what do we, Southmoreland and Hyde Park, because we got to address my concern at least, I think some of the other concerns I hear is that 6 being light and 4 being heavy is incongruous. We need to, it's incompatible, inconsistent with the views that we've been taking on. If we keep anybody heavy, anybody light, what should be light. If anything's light, 1, 2, and 4 are the primary considerations for being light. Not 3 and certainly not 3 and 6.
Right.
And
right.
and like I said before, I've said it all along. I have no problem with 3 being heavy. If we find how to make 3 heavier and accomplish that, I don't think it doesn't. But the problem here is between 4 and 6, not 3 and 4.
Right, but so this takes us all the way back to 8.4. 8.4.1. So as we kind of look at the journey of this, if you go back to your 8.4.1 bump, and if we look at those totals, that gets us there. The actual number total for the districts,
What is 8.4?
Kyle, how
last
many?
week, from last week, and then, what I want to draw attention to is the comparison in the percentages as well. So the numbers get us, they look a little better. Still technically 86, District 6 being at 84,154, but, it being different than the 1,000 less that we see in this 8.4.3. And the percentages are still right around the same. So I just want to draw attention because when we talk about these little tweaks, they've likely already happened. It kind of takes us to a previous one. So I just want to bring that back up. And to Cal's piece, I think what I see being done was trying to accommodate what those requests were for the neighborhoods. And I hear the call, Commissioner Adams, of, hey, we're okay with third being heavy, but there's no way the third can be heavy without further diminishing this percentage.
No, I'm okay. I'm
So-
okay with that. I understand that. I just don't think we should make 6. I'm okay.
Well,
I'm
I-
okay. I don't think
two
6
questions.
should be light at the expense of 4. I guess is what I'm saying.
Two questions. Stephanie,
Yes.
which percentage were you talking about? Just to clarify, Hispanic percentage or African American percentage
Both.
for 3?
So 8.4.1, the percentages on
Okay.
8.4.1 bump and 8.4.3 are roughly the same.
Right, but the Hispanic percentage was lower on 8.4.1, right?
Yeah, 8.4 and 0.4 is better for the. It gets 22. It gets a 22% into 4.
Versus
8.4.1
21.94.
bump is 22.13%.
Yeah, what I'm showing
yeah,
on the
right,
screen right
yeah,
now is
The newest one is 21.94%. So if we round to the closest, they're both 22%.
on the screen is 8.4.1, and you're at 19 and 22, and you're at 19 and 22,
Yeah.
54 and 57.
Well, that's where I thought,
I like 8.4.4.
I want to ask my second question
Yeah,
to Kyle.
here, Reed, what's your second question?
Are both, you've got, on the maps that we've got today, you've got precinct 1208 going to District 4, precinct 1301 going to District 3. Are those just simply flipped from the maps that we were looking at last week? What's the population of precinct 1208 that's going into 4?
We'd have to pull it up and
Okay.
show you.
I guess I'm just going to express my frustration that we're talking about, we're going back to Southmoreland and Hyde Park when should be looking at the
Right.
3rd and the 4th where it's meeting.
That's-
That's kind of what Vicky was saying.
thank
Commissioner
you.
Day, I'd like to answer that. So after looking at those two precincts, 1208 and 1301, I made a suggestion to the city staff to move precinct 1301 into District 3. It was split between District 4 and District 3, and we found a solution that moving 1208 into 4 allowed a precinct to stay fully intact that had a split between the African-American population and the Latino population. The percentages of Latinos that move into 1208 into District 4 is about 870. And prior to that, we were split in percentages. The number of pulling the African-American population out with 1301 was 311 that we pulled out if we split that precinct. They now have all 311 out of that precinct in their District 3. We
Is that total people in the district, or are you
just,
talking
the
about?
total people in the district, 1208 has 1,286. Precinct 1301 has 1,263.
Okay, I'm just confused on how we're polling out.
So
Yeah.
it was a
Specific.
split precinct that had a growing population of Latinos as well as an existing population of African American, Black. And instead of splitting the precinct, we looked at the contiguous of the District 4, right at that corner. As you see it, it looks like a tooth bite. And we could place 1208 in there. Increase the Latino population into District.
It doesn't increase your percentage though, correct?
We're in percentage points here.
Well, I think
So
that's
we're
where,
nowhere near a 50%.
Right.
I mean, anything to be protected by the Voting Rights Act.
Well, the contiguous population of a minority opportunity district is a combination of all marginalized and underrepresented populations, which would be Black, Asian, Pacific Islanders, and Latinos. So we know there's a goal that we must protect coming out of the gate for Precinct 3, District 3. We were trying to accommodate the number with just 2 swaps of a precinct. The population difference is very minimal. But the percentage gain for the the third district, with Black population, there was a gain, and there was a gain in the Latino population in 4th. Just moving one precinct.
It gets us up to 54 and 57 and 3 and 5. And, while I'd like to be 60 or 58, that's the best we're going to be able to do on any of these
Right.
iterations is that. And so I just have a concern about 6 being light. But if Vicky's okay with 4 being heavy, I can be okay with it too. I
I'm
just say
not
4
hearing
being-
the okayness. What I'm hearing is you're saying, how can
What-
that, the heaviness be interchanged and that way it is dropped in the
Right.
third,
When
but it
we-
being dropped in the third would affect the percentages.
right, when we left this, which is, I guess, last week, because Reed and I talked about this, that this 8.4.1 left the districts a little more equal in total, which we thought was good, and made the percentages in both 3 and 5, and had the same percentage as what Pedro's talking about for the Hispanic percentages. So it seems to me that solves the equity issue, or the equal number issue per district. It solves the like neighborhood problem in the 4th, because those weren't the only neighborhoods that are getting split. We've got lots of neighborhoods that are getting split. Those were the ones that we thought were just more compatible, and Reed and I both thought they were both more compatible in 4 than 6. And that didn't make 6 as light.
Correct.
So that's my preference.
Yeah, and so I guess, Commissioner Zamora, I want to go back to you, because even in listening to your argument and going back and reading it again, that's why I want to bring up, welcome, Dr. Hill, 8.41 and 8.43 have the same percentiles. But I'm hearing your explanation is, but where the people are placed, we feel, so that is important. And this whole series of meetings has been about recognizing what is important to us, and then now having to rank, how does it go, right? And so my question is, because the percentages are the same, but the numbers are better in 8.41 without that, 1208 to D4 and 1301 to D3, while that is important, is the greater priority and importance to keep the numbers more even as far as the total population numbers more even? And not just to you, Commissioner Zamora, but to all of us.
So map 8.41 does not have the Southmoreland community drawn into the map as similar as 8.4.3. Again, I'll stress that moving the precinct 1208 into District 4 and placing precinct 1301 into District 3, which was split between 3 and 4, does a very little change to the overall population of 4, and it makes incremental value change to the Latino population and the African American population into 4 and 3. And the percentages, as we round them up, are very incremental, but it places a voting block into both districts, versus splitting one.
I get it. I hear you. I agree that it is important. Now, how do we rank it? And rank may be harsh, right? It's hard to rank it because we understand this is people. But as we are faced now with making this decision, what becomes that top priority? Getting the total population. I mean, and that's part of this discussion, right? We've debated on other points of priority.
Right.
And so I guess that's what we need to discuss and decide.
Perhaps I'm missing something mathematically here.
Okay.
In the total population, as I mentioned, precinct 1208 is 1,286. Precinct 1301 is 1,263. We're talking 17-ish people, total population between precincts.
Okay.
That's not a population contribution to being over in District 4, as we would see between 8.4.1 and 8.4.3. Making that precinct change does not create the 1,020 overage.
Okay.
What does?
Bringing Southmoreland in,
Southmoreland's in on 8.4.1.
and that also,
No, it's not.
Hyde
No,
Park.
it's not.
It's not.
Hyde Park.
Highland Park, it's just Highland
So
Park.
that's going down Gillum, right?
Okay.
No, it's just Hyde Park.
Yeah, it's just Hyde
Okay.
Park. So you're saying removing Southmoreland instead of,
a precinct. If we swap the
It's in your
precincts back,
packet.
the numbers would be incremental, moving the precincts together. We're looking at a contiguous precinct voting block.
So we did, because we weren't exactly sure what to show, we did produce one. We were trying to simplify what we provided, but have the information ready. Brian did produce 8.4.3 that had the swaps of the precincts, and that the other conversation was Southmoreland in or out. And here's what the numbers look like. It just took me a moment to find it. So 84, 85, 83, 85, 85, 84. Sorry for being so fast on that. 2.68, 2.82% difference. But that is Hyde Park included, not Southmoreland, which was one of the requests last time.
right.
8.4.4 has both of them included, doesn't it?
Yeah.
8.4.4 has both of them in 4.
Everything we provided today had both of those things in there. We just
okay.
happened to have had this one
Ready.
ready. And that was just by chance when we were deciding how to prepare for this. Since we're almost done with these conversations, we were trying to be able to answer as many questions as we could on the fly.
And that's 8.4.3, that's the one that you,
Madam Chair, could I just ask Commissioner Day, did I get to your question answered?
I mean, yes, I hear you. No, as far as you're concerned about splitting a precinct, and I'm concerned about splitting Southmoreland from the rest of Hyde Park. I don't know how to resolve that right now.
Well, I think,
Those are the two
I think-
competing kind of priorities, if you will.
well,
Well,
I'd like to answer that.
you can put them all in one.
I like to answer that. If you go back to 8.4.1, the percentages between precincts, the two precincts is very incremental. It doesn't add 1,020 to the population count for District 4.
I hear you.
But we
You're
don't
saying
have
the
to put the
increase comes
neighborhoods
from
in there.
Southmoreland, but it separates the,
Yeah.
It separates those
The
neighborhoods,
difference
that's my
isn't
problem.
just neighborhood split. The issue is the nature of this fifth and fourth, sixth and fourth districts that are changing significantly. I mean, besides our conversation about the Northland, the biggest change in here is for 4 and 6. They're completely different districts than they were before. The south end of 4 is the place where we merge with 6. So that's what we've been talking about, trying to find the best way to go forward, so that's a positive, can be a positive change. And we've all talked about how this is probably gonna change in the next time significantly, but, that, I think that's different, the boundary between two districts and what is gonna make them work with significant changes. I mean, we're not talking about precincts, we're talking about going from 59th Street to 43rd Street. And we've let that go a long time ago, so we forget that that's a huge change for people out there who are just, you know, wondering what the heck is going on. So we've been trying to explain that, but Reed and I have both been working with people to figure out just that one last piece to see if we can make that smoother. And so I think the difference is the difference between two districts and the difference between two precincts is the difference in scale.
But with it, I'm looking at here, the 8.4.4 with 1208 to District 4 and 1301 to District 3. Is the only concern about that one the fact that 6 is light and 4 is heavy? Because that accomplishes it both, that gets Pedro what he wants, and it keeps the Southmoreland and Hyde Park together. Right? I mean,
It
you know,
continues to give us the issue with 4 being so heavy.
Yeah, 4 is heavy, and that's,
That's just the difference between the bump and the bite,
right.
4.4 and 4.43.
Yeah, so not to jump totally far ahead, but in that one, 8.4.4, second district is 86,000 and fourth district is 86. And
It goes
previously, those are two districts that have had significant growth.
Right.
I think if, I want to also respect what 6 wants to do here. If you don't want to be light, then we can change that. I don't,
I'm okay with the 6th district being light. I was just wanting to know, do you want to be heavy? I guess that's the
I
thing.
I
If
don't
you-
think it's good for any of the 3 districts that are growing to be heavy, but I think on this time around, that's a better sacrifice unless you want to be heavier, and then that should go down, heavier than you are in here. We can be light if you guys, I mean, we could be heavy if you guys, 1,000 people that would stay in 4
I
Midtown
I
neighborhood.
personally don't mind being light. If that makes you happy on the Hyde Park side situation.
Crazy, but I think it helps. I don't know, Reed, do you?
I'm trying to process. When we talk about redistricting and gerrymandering neighborhoods, and you know, we're already going to get it from every single boundary that we're looking at. The Southmoreland and Hyde Park neighborhoods are one and the same to me, and going from 155th to 43rd is crazy and long and stretched. I would be extremely frustrated if I lived in Southmoreland to come to find out that I've been working across Gillum with Hyde Park neighborhoods and now I'm split. If being light is what it takes, then that may be what it takes, but we can't express frustration with 4 being heavy, because that's just going to have to be the trade-off.
Well, I don't know if it's okay with Pedro, but I think in this case, we're gonna be over next week anyway. So, we're already heavy, we're gonna be heavy. I see this whole thing as kind of a transition because the whole western part of the city's undergoing big changes just because of the geography. And so, if no one else is, if there are no changes in the Northeast that would help make this any better, then I don't want to take it out on South Portland and Hyde Park.
So we're looking at
Fit there.
8.4.3. With that 8.4.3, so the 8.4.3 does not include the
It doesn't.
changes?
It does.
It includes, depends on which map you're looking at.
8.4.3, not the one with the
1208.
1208.
Yeah, the one without 1208 doesn't have that swap, but it does have Southmoreland in there. So if you want all of the changes, you're looking at the one that says 8.4.3, 1208 to D4, 1301 to D3.
Okay, and the difference in how heavy 4 is in each of those is 600 people. Is that right?
Yeah, where's that being picked up, or where's that difference between 8.4.3? Both versions of 8.4.3 that we've gotten today. And I'm sorry if you've already said it, Kyle.
It's okay.
Trying to track it.
Yeah, so in 4 has, in 8.4.3 without.
It's 377 people, right?
Where's that? Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Brian, a little help, if
It
you
has
don't
to be
mind.
the 1208,
Yeah.
1301.
Is it that area?
It's that
Sure,
area.
Okay.
I think the big thing to keep in mind is that 1301 in previous maps, as Pedro mentioned, was split. So we're not doing it exact like for like substitution. We're actually giving all of 1301 to
Third district.
the 3rd district
That's
and
right.
all of 1208 to the 4th
To the
district.
4th.
So even though those precincts are they're only off by 25 people or something like that, it's actually 377 due to the split. I believe 377.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would then cause that 800 or 700 number because you take away from one, you add to another.
Multiply.
Correct.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that
But
makes
just
sense.
for the
Yeah, no,
sake
that,
of,
that answers my question. Yeah.
it's
thank you.
377 folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciate the perspective that was given to this argument, that we're talking about roughly 377 of being over what was previously. But what that 377 does is it keeps a precinct intact, which is been stated that's important, and it also keeps a community intact. What it results in is District 4 being 377 greater than what it was without those changes.
Without the precinct changes.
The precinct.
Following the precinct versus the block.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a small number to argue over. If we're heavy by 377 people, that could change with a tornado, so,
Like you said, tomorrow.
It's changed already.
yeah. Okay.
It-
I mean, I think we have to be light if this is the trade-off, that I think we've got to be light.
We, as in District
The
6.
6th, yeah. I don't see any other way. And, I mean, we all want our districts to grow. Martin City's got development going on. I mean, I don't know.
Is that Kansas City?
It just it doesn't sit great just looking at 84, 85, 84, 86, 85, 83. But we're well within the margin of 10%, and we're simply trying to keep neighborhoods together.
That becomes the rationale, right? That's what we would have to lead with.
Right.
That the production of this, if it's the will of this council, and this becomes one, and we'll do this with each of the 3 that we're thinking through, what those key rationale points, and for this one, it would be maintaining communities, keeping them intact, keeping a voting precinct whole, in addition to the other changes, representation, and so on and so forth. Really great discussion. Any other key points around 8.4.3, 1208 map?
Well, I just have a question about the bump. Is that the only difference between 8.4.4 and 8.4.3, the bump?
That is the next one if we want to move to it.
Well, before we move, Madam Chair, if I could, on 8.4.3, I would just like to say that regarding the first and second, the bump and the bite, I am in favor and like the way the 8.43 bump works, just because of if the intent is truly to create socioeconomic solidarity, for lack of a better term, that bump is better in line with that than the bite scenario. The area over off south of 76th Street would not be in like.
Yeah, that's the neighborhood is more compatible with the.
The bump is more compatible with the scenarios
I heard
that have
that too.
With the
folks have been
rationale.
with what has been shared in the past. So lending knowledge of the district and the
Please.
area,
Yeah.
that would be the comment that I would make on 8.4.3. I also would say that the interstate being the boundary further ensures that neighborhoods and are not split. There is a development north of 76th Street that is similar to the one that's south of 76th Street.
Okay,
So
for
they would be
8.4.
they would be able to collaborate, work together,
Got it.
much like we're talking about with Hyde Park and Southmoreland. It's similar type neighborhood.
And this goes, Cal, to what you were transitioning us to kind of talk about 8.4.4. And if
Okay.
we can start with 1208, since we have consensus that the 1208 is doable. But we still have to look at these total population numbers.
Yep, so next map is 8.4.4. Everything on this map is the same as our last conversation, with the exception of what was referred to as the bump, right where my cursor is. That's along US 69, 152 area. That one's out of this map. What is in place in this map is basically one subdivision, Estates of Northbrook or Northbrook. There's a couple different plats that are in there. And we'll talk through what the numbers look like. So on this one, the percentages stay exactly the same as they did before. 19% Hispanic in District 3, 22% 4, 54% Black or African in 3, 57% in 5. Deviation here is 3.45. Where the difference does occur is in the overall population. And what it does is it makes District 1 light at 83,400, District 2 heavy at 86,000 and a little change there. Third District 84,000, some change. District 4 is still heavy at 86,000. District 5 is 85,000 and District 6 is 83,000. So the real difference that we're looking about here is the difference between this area on the eastern side or this area in the central portion of the city.
Can you do your cursor one more time with where the?
Yep.
Maybe I'll look at this screen.
So actually, I'll pull it up right here. It is, the previous one had this area in. And this area out. So for those of you familiar with the Northland, Metro North Shopping Center is right there.
Right.
This is the Shoal Creek area, right next to Liberty. Most people actually
Right.
think
Right,
that
it's
is.
right over there by Liberty.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks,
So
Kyle.
the
And
bite,
what Mike is saying is that area over there by Liberty is more, I guess, more fluent, more upscale, or higher property values, more consistent with that north of that. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
so you're saying Shoal Creek is the bulk of the bite? Is that right?
Well, that last wag
Well-
is,
So real quick, to Mike's point, if you look at this map, this was the median income map that we looked at.
Right, yeah.
This area where my cursor is the community that we're talking about, and you can tell it kind of sticks out. This area right here would be the bump. And it is a little more consistent with some of these areas.
South of there.
right.
Otherwise, you're really just looking at, population counts.
I'd like to hear from our first and second, so thank you, Commissioner Kellum, for kicking it off. Anything else you want to add, and then I'll pass it to Rutger.
One thing I would add, when looking at it from the socioeconomic perspective, made the comments that I made before, the one thing that does concern me is the heavy population in the second. That's the issue that I've had with the horizontal to some degree. It just makes it more difficult to do that. But that's the only, pending all of my previous comments over the last several weeks, I think if we're following the same principles as we discussed this, from the median home value and the socioeconomic status of, then this one creates an issue in my opinion.
This one,
8.4.4.
okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mike, what was the last part you said?
The socioeconomic, keeping in line with the socioeconomic conversation that's been shared in this commission, this one creates an issue with that.
8.4.4?
Yes.
Correct.
My concern with it is that it leaves the second district heavy, considerably heavy, by well,
Yeah,
Enough.
they come out the
Yeah.
same as 4. Amazingly enough.
So you said comparatively, you would be for 8.4.3 1208 map versus the
Not that much
8.4.4.
difference over there.
well,
I'm saying comparatively. I'm not, yeah, that's not a trick question. We recognize you are not in favor, but comparatively,
of the
based upon the rationale.
of the two, if you're looking at that scenario, that's the basis of my opinion. Yes,
Okay, that was not a trick question.
I'm with you.
Which is
following.
4.3,
8.4.3 1208. I'm
Yeah.
calling it 1208
Right.
because,
Prefer that
yeah.
too. So 8.4.
But that solves the issue you just raised.
Yes.
Yes, that's, Commissioner Rucker?
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't support either one of the horizontal maps, as I've
Yes.
stated before, for all of the reasons. I would echo what First District, Kellum has said. He's more familiar with that area, and as you're walking through it, now I'm picturing it in my mind what that area is. And I would agree with that. The only thing that where I would feel I would differ is I'm not so sure with these horizontal districts that the second district is really going to grow. And that's what part of my fear is withdrawing these lines horizontal. And so, to me, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other.
Thank you. I'll say from my perspective with First District, I think our rationale of representation based upon socioeconomic needs and being able to better support that representation, that bump is preferable, the 8.4.3 with the 1208 map. And also it keeps those numbers more intact, still recognizing that 4 is that 377 over or more than. As it relates to development, and we've kind of mentioned this before and maybe debated it, that developers are still interested, and that continues to be the work of the leaders in and throughout that community. And it may be with this option, this horizontal option, that we can have more relevant development opportunities and advocacy in the midst of developing for people within this newly constructed second district. So that's my perspective as a Northlander. And my preference would be the 8.4.3 with the 1208. Any other commissioners with perspectives that you'd like to add or questions you want to pose?
It took me a moment. I should have did this before, but I had to get them in order. If you'll look at the screen, that's the difference between them.
Yes. Yep. So it sounds like, and as we are moving through our meeting time together, I want to be clear that we're able to declutter our option list as we move towards concluding our evening. And I'm hearing 8.4.4, either iteration. Are we able to put this aside, or do we still need to talk about considerations for it? We kind of just, and this is the difference between the bump and the bite. 8.4.3, 1208 is the bump. 8.4.4, 1208 is the bite. Are we able to move and slide this 8.4.4 to the side?
Yes, because I've seen it be the only proponent of it. I don't mind taking the lead and saying, let's cast it aside. I still think it's preferable. I like the one. I like Berry Road being the dividing line, but you all have Mike and you have made a more cogent argument than my rationale for keeping it. So that being the case, I have no problem with at this point withdrawing 8.4.4 from consideration, and I guess I could. Last time we did it by motion. Do you want to vote on it, a motion on it, or we just can't consensus? I'll make a motion if that's what you want. I move that we take map 8.4.4 out of consideration.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, by show of hand, of removing 8.4.4? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you all so much for that. We're now at 8.6.3, and this is with D 1208 and then without 1208. Cal?
So just because we've already covered this ground, we're looking at 1208. That includes everything we've already discussed. The real change here is how you decide to move forward with the two districts that are currently north of the river, or primarily north of the river. No disrespect meant to the portion of the 4th district. So what 8.6.3 does is it maintains the current vertical configuration. It does create a little more balance between Districts 1 and Districts 2. I'm going to read real quick through these things. Hispanic in the 3rd district is 19%. Hispanic in the 4th district is 22%. Black or African American percentage in the 3rd district is 54%. The Black or African American percentage in District 5 is 57%. The deviation here, or the 10% rule, is 3.45, so basically the same. This does match a little closer if you look at the map to what is currently on there. The numbers are for District 1, 84,610, Districts 2, 84,845, Districts 3, 84,030, Districts 4, 86,052, District 5, 85,418, and District 6, 83,134. So really, to reiterate again, the real conversation would be how this group chooses to look at horizontal versus vertical configuration of those districts.
All right, so we return back to our discussion as we move towards selecting one map to present to council, which is our task for today. And this is really our time, just as we've already done, is to engage in this very thoughtful dialogue that we will be able to conclude this meeting with a vote for one of the two maps. And so I would like to open up the floor for whichever commissioner would like to start and share what you're a proponent of and why. And of course, if you have any reasons to be against the other, sometimes you don't have to be against something to be for it, but sometimes you are. And so just simply articulate yourself, and then we'll create space for other commissioners to follow. So the floor is open. Or do you all already feel like we're there? I'm with it either way.
Madam Chair,
Please.
what I've shared over the last several weeks, I could sit here and rehash and go through again, and I do just want to add some additional factual data for consideration. Over the last 60 years, on average, the Northland has grown at a rate of 3,500 people per year. If you take that into consideration, and a large part of that's been recently above 152. If you take that into consideration, moving forward, when we talk about representation and the one person, one vote, and making sure that we're not putting residents in a position of being underrepresented nearly immediately, which I've touched on before, but I just want to put a little bit of data behind that. With the horizontal configuration, which I've noted that I'm not in favor of, that puts the 1st district out of the 10% consideration in the year 2023 based on the 3,500 per year growth that I just shared. And that is based on permit data from the city. By 2026, you're over 20%. 20% discrepancy. By 2029, you're at 30% in the 1st district. And that creates, I think, a gross underrepresentation. There's potential, if things continue in that direction, that you're at 34% by 2030 in the 1st district. That's a large area or large population that is not represented at that point in time. That's the concern that I have with the horizontal boundaries. You can better manage that growth with representation through the vertical boundaries. having said that, there's been a consideration tonight regarding the 6th district having to represent clear down south of 150 up to 43rd Street, which I agree, that's a challenge. There are differences there. When you look at 8.4.3 in consideration to 8.6.3, the horizontal configuration does exactly that. When you are trying to represent in the 1st district again, from the west part of the 1st district over near the airport to the east part over near Liberty, that is a wide-ranging geographical area to try with different, not only different counties, but different philosophies and tasks on how they're addressing the issues that they have within the needs of their community. The difference there, while I certainly understand the 6th, and I think that's hard to manage, in the 6th, what we've talked about is there's not a choice. In the 1st district, there is a choice to not create that. And that's one of the things that I've shared. That affects people. It's a tremendous change from where they've been over the last 30 years since 1991. And as we work in this commission for the betterment of the entire city, I think taking all those things into consideration like we have in every other district, I would just offer that as a consideration as we move forward, whether we do horizontal or vertical. I'm strongly in favor of vertical. As I've mentioned before, I think having the horizontal creates an opportunity for division and non-inclusive collaboration. And I think it actually puts the proposed 2nd district if horizontal at a disadvantage for opportunities to partner with their counties, creates competing interests. It takes things off of the table in some instances, and I don't see that as being a benefit to the city as a whole. With that, I'll close my comments.
Thank you. Floor remains open.
I will not rehash everything that I've said over the course of this either, and try not to say anything that Mike has said as well. But just to piggyback off of that, part of what our task was to redraw these lines with minimal change, and redrawing the entire Northland horizontally is far from minimal change. And Commissioner Notice has commented even just today about how moving their line from 59th, I think it is, or 53rd to 43rd, so I think it's 10 blocks, give or take, completely changes the district, and how drastic that is and how much time and attention we've given to these two neighborhoods. So it doesn't change the district that much. Well, yet in the Northland, we're going to change the entire 35% of the city. 38% of the city. Thank you for the correction. And that's not even a thought. Or maybe it is a thought and that's why we want to do it. I'm not sure. But it just doesn't seem right. Having listened to all the public comment and testimony and looking at where all of it has come from, and some of it's concentrated and a lot of it is from all over, drastically changing 38% of the city based off of what a few people have said in that part of the city, when overwhelming majority of the other part just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. And so again, not going through everything that I've said, I just wanted to make sure that I was able to say that. Not sure if it's going to change any minds at all, but just wanted to make sure that I'm able to put the information out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Rucker. Floor remains open for other thoughts.
Madam Chair, my thoughts over the last several weeks started to change about week 3, and I did my homework as you asked me. I got it here, but I won't read it all. But in week 3, I realized our task was beyond what this commission can answer, and to independently draw proposed boundaries for Kansas City districts based on census data that allocates constituents proportionately while also accounting for the unique histories and experiences and interests of these communities. That was a big challenge. it's good to have last week, Wednesday off, because it allowed me to look at videos from the past meetings. It allows me to go back and visit with folks within many parts of the city and listen. Oh, and I ran across a video this morning where a Northland councilman, Dan Fowler, says everyone's going to hate these changes no matter what it looks like at the end of the day. This was dated July 15th, 2020. Change is always going to happen. If it doesn't happen now, it'll happen in 10 years or 50 years. And I hear the concerns, but I also recognize we can't stop the inevitable change that must be made for our city to have proper representation. Until I saw those socioeconomic maps and started hearing and rewatching Northland and all the other comments, I was amicable to what first and second districts wanted to maintain. But if it's the last 50 years that we haven't had representation and continuity of representation, then maybe we have to ask for a little change. That's the toughest thing we must write in our recommendations to the city council. There's going to be a new Kansas City, and it has to start with this commission making the right decisions. I like the horizontal maps for that reason, because I think it's time, listening to a councilman from the north, talking about change. It registers with me even more. Thank you.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
Go ahead.
I've talked to a lot of people on both sides of this question. Talked to more people who are opposed to it, quite frankly, than people who are supportive of it. However, the more persuasive argument with me came from those who advocate for change, for giving an opportunity, or creating better opportunities for better representation, and for what's best for the city. And that's what I went into this mission, I went into this task or this endeavor doing, and having at the forefront of my mind what's best for the city. But I've said that before, I don't need to rehash that now at this point. But I do want to talk about the one man, one vote issue that's out there. And that is that we have to draw these lines based upon the numbers that we have in front of us from the Census Bureau. I know, and I think many people around this table know, that if you are a student of history and believe in data, that there is a gross undercount of Latino and African Americans in the data that we have. And we know they're here, and we know they're primarily in the 3rd district, but we can't draw lines based on the fact that they're undocumented or didn't count or not counted or undercounted. And there are going to be more to come. We can't draw lines based on that. We draw lines based upon the numbers that we have in front of us. We know also that the downtown is not in sync right now. We know, and I believe before the next election, that the 4th district would not be in compliance. And the 1st district may very well not be in compliance. But that's not what our mission is. We can't draw lines based upon what might be, or even what we anticipate. We got to draw lines based upon what the numbers show now, and not based upon what the projected growth may be. The last time the city did draw some lines based upon projected growth, I believe it was 2010 before the census came out, those numbers were off. They overestimated the using permits. They overestimated the numbers that were that they anticipated in those districts, and they had to readjust them after the census data came out when they drew the lines that we have now. So I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't see a reason why we've tried the vertical configuration for a couple of election cycles. Why not try the horizontal for election cycle? Two, especially if the testimony we heard said that it would give voice to people who feel that they're have been neglected, or felt they've been underrepresented, or felt they've been overpowered by the wealth and political influence of those who advocate against the horizontal map. So for that reason, I prefer 8.4.3 at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Other thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Please.
I think everybody's been pretty articulate in this discussion about what we think is going to happen and then trying to take the future into consideration with this. The issue I have, and I don't know that I've expressed it very well before, but Kansas City has a lot of dividing lines in it for completely different reasons. There's segregation lines, there's economic lines, there's particularly older parts of the city versus new. And because the city's so big and we wanted it to be big when we did all these annexations, that we created an issue where resources of newer areas that are growing are always pitted against older neighborhoods that need more as they age. And I think what's become apparent to more people than usual in these kind of discussions is that there's a whole section of that in the Northland that hasn't really been able to garner some of the resources, or they don't feel they have, to be able to compete, and they're in the same boat that Northeast and the 3rd and 5th district are in. And I think that that's something Kansas City has to continue to come to grips with, and the council has to come from different perspectives who can negotiate with each other about those ongoing problems of resources. Now we have 508,000 people to pay for 322 square miles of city. It's a lot of infrastructure. It's always going to be an issue between fixing older stuff so that it'll last in a sustainable way and finding ways to pay for new stuff that isn't at the expense of that. And so to me, it is a development issue. I understand Mike and Martin's concern about that, and I think the trends in the future are going to be more towards more density and more urban kinds of configurations, which is now what the 4th District is. It hasn't traditionally been what it is. But I think the changes, I think all of these districts are undergoing some pretty significant changes. 5 has changed a lot, 6 has changed a lot, 4th has changed a lot. And I think, we have 4 districts that cross county lines. Every district's got school districts all over the place. And some of that we can't help a lot, but to be as fair and as equal as we can possibly be with what these changes are forcing, I think that I agree we should try something different in all the districts, which is, I think, what has happened here. So because of that, I support 8.4.3, I think.
Thank you, Commissioner Notice. Other thoughts?
I've got, I think, Madam Commissioner, I think you put it correctly on the fact that I'm not against either map. I'm just for one more than the other. So I just wanted to let my fellow commissioners know that. Before this whole process started, I thought we'd have all the arguments south of the river, to be honest with you. And for us to pretty much come, none of us got what we really wanted, but through compromise, that's usually the sign of a good negotiation. If nobody comes out happy, that means it looks like that everybody compromised correctly. So this north of the river thing kind of threw me for a curve. My initial thought is I like the north-south because of the fact that it divides the two counties, and I used to run political elections up there, and the two counties are completely different from each other. Some people choose to live in one county versus the other based on the government and how people live up there. But I know that's just one part of the decision. I am concerned that so far 2 of the 3 commissioners are against the east-west configuration, and they're the experts. I would hope that my commissioners would lean on me and Reed when it came down to the 6th district expertise. So I'm kind of leaning on, at least so far, 2 of the commissioners that are against it. And as I brought up a couple weeks ago, one of the things that could have got my vote back to the east-west is that I would really like to have seen a community meeting north of the river where we showcased a east-west map. And we never did. And I know it wasn't the intention of this commission, but it looks like we went up and showed them 3 maps that were north-south, and we had put aside the east-west commission, or the east-west map. And we just never went back up there. And I remember at the meeting, first or second meeting, when I even proposed the fact that why did we have community meetings when everyone could just sit on the internet and watch it? And everyone here, and rightfully so, because I was educated on this, not everybody has internet access. Not everybody has a car. Some people want to give their opinion in person, and we never allowed that the north of the river area, that input up there for another community meeting, especially with such a drastic change. And so for that, I am leaning on the 8.6.3. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Llewellyn. Other thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Reed and I are always tag teaming.
Yes.
Each other. So, in 2011, last time there was redistricting, it was former Mayor Sly James. And in December 6th of 2011, he felt the need to make his second comment about the redistricting process. I'm not sure if it was because of the public testimony section or if it was, I wasn't on the commission then in 2011, if it was the dynamics with commissioners. But I just want to read a little bit of what he said. He said, while it has apparently become acceptable to engage in political speech that promotes division and discouraging compromise, I do not believe we should model intolerant behavior in our civic dialogue. He said, I have intentionally stayed off the public process of redistricting and confined my comments in a way that the conversation could progress, but is unfortunate in this manner when he said that as he watched the tapes, he didn't believe that the manner in which it was conducted represented the best of Kansas City. I bring that up first before I go into the comments about the maps because I have really been satisfied and excited and have enjoyed this process, both as a commissioner, but also in the way that the public has came forth and talked to us about what they would like to see that has changed. And that is a lot to testament of how you have led this process, Madam Chair, and also how we have worked together in the spirit of compromise, that we have set the tone in these community meetings that you might not agree with what we have put forward, but we want to hear your feedback. Secondly, I would just want to thank you all, the staff, because I know you have been under enormous pressure to produce these maps in such a short time frame for us to get to a place in 9 or 13 weeks that have taken months. And I don't want to miss a moment to go on the record to say that now that we're narrowing down to 1 or 2, that this has been easy, because I know it hasn't been easy on you. And even though you're not political, I'm sure there are conversations that happen about the maps, right? And with the exception of the comments that was said in the newsletter about Madam Chairwoman Stephanie Smith, this process has pretty much been on the up and up, and we have all been transparent. So the comments that I have are not particularly about anyone, but want to stay in this lane of respecting everyone's decision. I'm with Commissioner Chris. The one thing that has challenged me in this space is that you're right. When you are looking at changing boundaries and are asking people to adjust and you're thinking about the districts, we have all leaned in to the expertise of the people that represent those districts. There have been things we have not agreed with, but we, 6th district, 5th district, 4th district, 3rd district, have all thought about what a different iteration could look like of our boundaries. I think for me personally, what has been a point of concern is that I didn't see that in the 2nd district. I didn't see that all of those people that came forward that talked about the pain and the struggle and had their babies out and talked about how it felt not to have representation, I didn't see a willingness to think about another way. And I totally understand, and I think that that speaks to the volume of concerns that people have about sticking to the status quo and always doing what has been done. Is that I think if there was even a willingness to say, let's see this and socialize this, I even think the folks that came from the 2nd that gave those comments would at least said I felt heard. But I felt like what they might have seen was like, yeah, we hear that, but this. And yeah, that might be good, but this. And I think when people look at that, they won't necessarily understand the full range of expertise that both Rucker and Kellum bring, but that they will say, oh, he's a planner and he's an economic development. And so it feels as if the people aspect of what is happening here is lost. And it feels as if, and I don't think that either one of you are coming through with that lens, but I think the unwillingness to see something happen differently in the 1st and 2nd has been a tension point for many of us who are not in that area, because we each have had to go back and sit in front of constituents and hear concerns and see, particularly for the 5th, our district look significantly different. With that and the way that I am thinking about, I think Commissioner Zamora, you made a comment when you asked us to look at the map and the red dots. And I looked from south of Berry Road to all the way down to almost near Westport. You know, you didn't see any representation. Like, that's a huge area to not have anyone that's an elected official represent you, you know? And so going back to saying, I don't live in the 1st or 2nd. I travel there. I support people there. I know people that live there. But when I think about the legacy of what this commission is for to put forward for the entire city, I lean more to the 8.4.3. And what I'm encouraging people, whichever map goes forward, because people will not be happy. I agree with that. People will not be happy with either way we go. Is that we have all, hopefully through this process, understand that there needs to be a review of the charter. I think that there has to be a commission that looks at this, because none of us want anyone to feel like they are unrepresented or not heard or that their lives change. The last thing I'll say is that former Mayor Sly James says no one's lives change when you redraw boundaries. And I think in 2011, there are some people that would say if I'm in the 5th or 4th or 3rd or whatever, I'm still who I am. This is still my community. And I just hope that folks see that while who you represent might be different, the relationships that cross in neighborhoods, Blue Hills will still be Blue Hills, whether the line is at 51st or the line is at 55th. And hopefully what we add more to this context, instead of talking about how these lines divide us, is how it can bring us together for the betterment of our city. So thank you all for indulging me in my little historical rant about change. And I mean that I'm here to work to help us get to a place where we feel good about our maps. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. And thank you for your kind words and recognition of the efforts of the commissioners.
Real quick, and thank you for the kind words. I just, for the record, just wanted to say that the 64117, where most of the comment came from, and the speakers filled out the cards, is in the 1st district, not the 2nd.
Thank you. Commissioner Day?
Thank you. I think, so I said it a month and a half ago, it's, for me in redistricting and what we're doing here, I look at it from a representation angle. What is representation look like? What are communities and voters who can band together and affect a candidate or affect some sort of political change that they want. These maps are tough. We heard from the 6th district perspective, we heard from Hickman Mills community, not the school district, because that was something that we said wrong at first. We've worked to get the community back into the 5th as much as we could while still being, trying to balance these districts, and we're still light. I don't love it. But the 6th district is going to get population. There's projects in Waldo, there's projects in Martin City. The 4th district is going to grow. And I hear that, I know the 1st district feels they're going to grow exponentially. I think we're going to have to balance that as a city going forward, and we can talk about the Charter Commission. When it comes to the Northland issue, for me, it is representation. It is the ability for an East-West band, for that group that's showed up at our hearings, for the data that was borne out with the different maps and studies that the city had shown us. That group isn't getting heard. One of the things that resonated with me was in the last public meeting at the Greg Kleist Community Center, it was the fact that so many of the young group from the Northeast came down and made it to that meeting to make sure that their voices were heard. And then you had a lot of 3rd district residents there who were in full agreement with what they were saying about representation, about their ability to band together as a voting bloc. That's why I'm in favor of 8.4.3. I do want to list, I just blew through half of what I wrote earlier today, but there's things that I don't love. I don't love that the 6th district is light. I don't love that the 6th district is 155th to 43rd. I don't, it's a long way. And that's why I will, my views on the Charter Commission definitely evolved over time. When it first came up, I don't even think Mayor Lucas's press release had been in ink for 5 minutes before I got phone calls at my office demanding to speak to me about 12 districts and proposing ways to change all these districts. And I said, I don't want to deal with any of that. Let's get 6 districts done in 9 weeks. Oh my God, how is that going to happen? But it's clear with 85,000 people that this is tough. Every single district here has different neighborhoods, different dividing points. The Northland would cite the Clay County and Platte County divide, I have no doubt. In the 6th district, the plaza is not Redbridge, where I grew up. There's differences in every district, and that makes it really hard. I want to send something to the council that says they really need to look at it. I don't have any idea whether it's 12, 9, 7, whatever it is. I think we need to stay neutral on that and just say we need to study this. We need to look at it. And the last thing, I looked up today. If you go back to 2019 and the 2015 elections, we're talking about 85, 84, 83,000 people in districts. And if you actually look at the election data for a general election, you've got 10 to 15,000 tops voting in an election for an in-district candidate. If you look at the at-large numbers, obviously that takes the 6 districts throughout the city, and so you're looking at 50 to 60, maybe 65,000. I think Mayor Lucas's election had 67,000-ish people that voted. That's unacceptable, just the same as these districts will be unacceptable to some people, and I can't wave a magic wand and make everybody go vote, but that's how you affect political change. And in the redistricting process, I'm trying to look at districts and boundaries and borders that allow people to have those opportunities. Now, I'm not going to go run for office. Now we need somebody to go run and fill those offices, and we need people to pay attention and go vote to make sure that they are able to have their communities, their neighborhood groups band together and work to make more effective change that they're unhappy with. So I said it, I would support 8.3 for the reasons that I've stated.
Well, thank you. And thank you to each commissioner. This is another display of the privilege, the pleasure, and the rigor that has been involved in this process, each of you being able to bring your perspective and your thoughtfulness. And so I appreciate that. If we start at 6th District and work our way up, and some of you all even articulated it, that every district has had some sort of pull and push. And I just appreciate your willingness to be able to do that, how you can both be thoughtful about your direct constituents and also lift up the higher goal of how can Kansas City be not just a redrawn line space, but a more equitable space. And when we go back to what our charge was, and our city attorney team, Matt kicked us off with this when he reminded us the goal of redistricting. And on the front of this page, the first sentence says, the first goal of redistricting is to provide for equality in the political process. And so as we have been able to listen and to study data, and Commissioner Day, you talked about this, and I just love the way that you coined it. You were like, this is all about representation. I mean, a different form of it a different need in just about every district, but still it boiled down to representation. And so that continues to be true. I think that while we are able to move forward with our task, it'll be imperative, and worth stating again, that the review of the charter will be part of our recommendation, as it is important that we study and look at how we can have better representation in this process. I even want to lift up, Commissioner Rucker, you brought up a really great point about the changes that are happening and the changes in District 4, even if it was with resistance, and yet and still the willingness for District 4 to make those to make those compromises for the greater good. I really appreciate that. As a Northlander myself, and the challenge that change may have in a consideration of moving from a vertical to a horizontal line, I think that's a worthy opportunity for us for the greater good of our city. As Commissioner Hill spoke about, if you take a look and we begin to erase the lines and just look at the dots, there is a huge sector of Kansas City that does not have that proximity, right? And we understand that proximity actually helps us understand better. And when we understand better, most people actually do better. And so with that, it is 8.4.3 that I support. I look forward to our opportunity to articulate our pros and our concerns. As you, Commissioner Day, talked about what you didn't love about it, I think that's part of our responsibility, is to, as best we can, articulate also the challenges with the recommendation that we will put forth. But most importantly, express the hopes for why the lines have been drawn, or we are suggesting and recommending to the council for the lines to be drawn as such. So we have taken somewhat of an informal vote. For those who have been taking count, it is 6 for map 8.4.3 with the 1208. So do you have that up? Thank you, Cal. And 3 for 8.6.3.
I didn't hear. I thought Chris said he was leaning that way. I didn't hear him vote yet.
Well, he said that was his lean.
Before he votes, I do want to make a couple more comments.
Yeah, we're not voting yet.
Okay. Oh, okay.
He said, "Wait a minute, look,
Yeah.
get it right,
About the
Commissioner."
process. He had some concerns about the process.
But can you hold on before I share it? I want to encourage those who have been walking with us in this process that find yourself disappointed in what you are hearing, and I could, Commissioner Adams, wait to talk about this if you have some more points to share
Yeah, I
to
did have some
perhaps?
point- yeah, I did have a
Okay,
couple
go
points
ahead.
to share before you get to that point, and it's about the one about the process, and one about a concern I had about map 8.1.3. First, about the process. I mean, you already recall the first map we did. I believe it was the first iteration we did was it had a horizontal, but I think I had proposed it
Correct.
before we went to the public. I kind of backed away from it, doing what Chris has suggested, listening to the Northland commissioners, and so I kind of say, well, okay, I still want to keep it in play, and we take it out, and we took all the maps out. Well, we kind of pulled away from that map, and we only made a presentation about 3 maps. The calendar made a presentation about 3 maps, that basically all were basically the same. Based upon that input that we got, you already recall this. It was based upon the testimony that we got at that second hearing up to Northland from those people who live south of Gladstone, who talked about not being heard, not having a voice. And it was after that meeting that we came back and gave stronger consideration to it. So the process worked. We came up with that horizontal configuration and started giving it serious consideration after getting input from the general public. Initially, I relied on what I was told by Mike and Martin, but that was informed, on my press office was informed by what information that we also got from the people, from the general public. And so that's how this process worked. To me, that's the way it's supposed to work. That was good. Second thing I said I had some concern about 6 being light.
Real quick, before you move to your
But
next
that's
point, could I ask you a question?
Let me finish both my points. And then you
Well,
can
it's, okay, it's relevant
and
to
then
your first one.
the thing, what Reed said, I have some concerns looking at the maps, looking at the last numbers. I really had a concern about 6 being light. But again, I wasn't looking at it clearly. Reed just made a good point here. I'm thinking about the old 6. The new 6 is going to go all the way down to 43rd Street. It's going to have part of Midtown in there, part of the plaza over there, where there is development going on, where the streetcars coming through. And so I think it is going to keep pace. And we're not, so I'm not as concerned about it being light as I was doing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Martin said.
Yeah. No, I guess, well, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Adams, and I appreciate your comments. Has your position changed on public comment from last week? Because last week, I know you shared that it's a democratic republic, and that doesn't necessarily need to be taken into account on some of the pieces.
No,
And
I mean, I don't do it.
that then supports. We understand. We hear the folks that are in the 64117 district, and we understand that there are concerns there. We understand what those concerns are. I don't think, as Commissioner Rucker brought up last week, that represents the entire Northland. And to your point last week, I think that your position last week regarding this being a democratic republic and public input can't sway the decision that we make. It's got to be based on factual data or our discussion here as our charge as a commissioner. That would seem that one zip code would not determine the entire direction of an entire geographic area. So I'm asking if your position has changed from last week to this week regarding a democratic
It's
republic.
been the same from the beginning, democratic republic, and I was appointed here to make it, to use my own intellectual capacity to make a decision based on the information that I gather.
Correct.
And that includes talking to you and Martin, hearing Stephenie's position, hearing other commissioners' position, but it also includes getting information from the general public. It also talks about meeting with the politicians that I met with, very well-respected politicians, both of them previous
Okay.
council members, several of them previous council members who live in the Northland, still active in the Northland, hearing their perspective. It's also listening to the people who came out and talked to us and the people who don't have the contacts to get access to me like those people do. People I don't have a relationship with, who ought to call me up. Listen to what they have to say when they get their testimony. It's looking at I read the editorials, the editorial board's report for the horizontal configuration in this morning's paper.
Is it true that
The KCU article. I take all those things into consideration and make a decision.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the, well, I guess they're okay for maybe in New England where you have the town hall meeting, everybody come out and then you vote upon the issue and, the majority wins. That's fine, that's one factor. But I think we take everything into consideration, make a decision, and that's what I did in this process.
Well,
I initially had backed away from the map based on the pushback that you all got from it. That thinking was informed by
Yeah.
and educated by the testimony, the public testimony I found it very compelling from those 3 people who are there. There was just 3 of them, and they were not connected. They were not.
Yeah.
They were not Ed Ford or Deb Herman or the other former council people that were up there. These were just regular, everyday people who came out and it kind of touched me a little bit.
Appreciate
So I
the-
need to go back and look at it some more.
I appreciate
So that's
I
my-
appreciate the explanation. I would refer to your comments earlier today, wherein you stated that you heard from more people in the Northland that were not in favor of it than. And
Yeah.
so I'm just pointing these things out because
No, that's
there are
consistent.
2 commissioners that were appointed and a third that's in the district who has her opinions and views. I'm trying to understand the process as we move forward
My
of what
process
we're
is not-
taking
okay,
into
but it's very
consideration
simple.
within this.
I don't wait, say, well, I had 10 people over here who like it, and I got 12 people over here who don't like it.
I'm
So
just
gonna
trying
go
to-
that way. No, I'm gonna use my intellectual capacity.
As
based
am-
upon
as am
all
I.
the information that I got to do the reason why I thought I was placed here.
As am I.
And so that's what I base it on.
And I appreciate
I
that.
didn't do it, I didn't weigh, all those different.
Yeah.
things.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the explanation. I'm trying to process within myself, but I'm taking the same approach.
Right, and I respect your position on that. I respect your right to take a different view. There's a lot of, like I said, a lot of people I know who I worked with, and one particularly, somebody that has had a pretty good working relationship with Deb Herman. Deb Herman contacted me, and she might not like me saying this publicly, but she was opposed to the horizontal configuration. That weighed heavy on me. It took a lot of me because I respect Deb, and she and I worked together on a lot of issues over the years. However, when I weighed everything together, I think the horizontal configuration is best for the city.
Fair enough. Appreciate your comments.
I would just say, Commissioner Adams, I totally understand why we brought back the East-West, because I heard that too. I'm just saying we should have gone back and showed them the new maps that we had, especially north of Berry Road, where a lot of the
did go
changes were.
back.
We did do that.
Where'd we go?
We went to Greg Kleiss, which was the North Central meeting. We won't go back and forth because we disagree, right? You don't think that was back enough. But the truth is, that when we set out and we talked about the community meetings, and I just want to make sure, because we're talking on record, that the second round of community meetings included North, Central, and South meetings as the first did. What was different is that the North and Central had to consolidate. The first round of Central meetings were held at Mohart. So we went further north to be able to meet in the middle between the Northland, what is known as the Northland, and what is more central to the city. And as we talk about Kansas City, as someone who lives up north, because I recognize some of you all are having this conversation as if I do not represent the north and live in the north.
I acknowledge that.
And I do. Thank you. So as a Northlander who recognizes that the North is part of Kansas City, that when we brought back the second round of meetings, there were actually several people from up north. I would almost venture to say, and I want to be clear and not mess this up because I don't have the data in front of me, but there were just as many people that spoke, gave a testimonial that represented the North than the Central itself. So I say that to say, because I want to make sure that there's no misinformation about the who and the why. What also determined the timing for that, or the decision for location, was availability and timing, because we had a schedule to go on. So, Commissioner Llewellyn, I want to give it back to you because I want to make sure you get a chance to finish your statement. But I do want to be clear that there was no omitting Northlanders from the process, as me being a Northlander as well would not want that to happen, and was very grateful for the number of Northlanders that were able to come to the Greg Kleiss location.
That wasn't my intent to say that the commission had any kind of conspiracy to do anything. I'm just saying that's what happened. There was no intent, and we didn't know what the testimony was going to be south of the river in those last 2 community meetings, and how a lot of people came out and said they liked the East-West. I just would have, as I said, I keep reiterating, I know we disagree. I just said I would like to have had a third community meeting up north, extreme north. And with time considerations, I do understand that. And once again, I am not against either one of these. I'm just for one more than the other at this particular point. I could have been swayed potentially with another meeting. That's what I was just saying.
No, appreciate that. So, thank you all for your considerations. I would like to, were you going to share something? I thought I saw you lean up.
I thought there might have needed some clarification. Didn't think that anybody was saying that there wasn't an opportunity for the North to come to the central meeting, titling it a North Central meeting. I think the point was that there was not a meeting in the Northland when there was on the first round. And while it's a North Central meeting, in the geographical portion of the city, the Northland, north of the river, where the largest change is going to happen, there was no second meeting. There was people at the North Central meeting in the second round, but there was not an opportunity in the Northland for a public comment meeting, and I think that's the point that was being raised.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to respond to that briefly, but, it's kind of traditional in Kansas City because we're so long and linear to have something in the north and something in the middle and something out south to keep people from having to drive a long way. But to say that Greg Clyce Community Center is too far away for Northland people or to feel comfortable coming to, that's crazy. You can drive farther away than that in your own first district or second district.
Who said that?
say
I didn't
that-
say that.
No, I'm
No
not
one
saying
did.
that you said that, but people have brought that issue up that it doesn't count because it wasn't far enough north, and that's sort of the culmination of what this conversation is about, is that people don't think they're part of the city from every direction. And the fact that people did come out to that who are less able to get there on transit and with one car, no cars, or carpooling or whatever it took, I think that says a lot about the fact that, other people thought that was not an appropriate place to have Northland input. And I just want to say, I think that, we combined that meeting for several reasons, just because of how the Saturday stuff worked out and all of that. But I was surprised by that, and I'm a little concerned by that as well.
The second South meeting we had was further south because someone said in the meeting that the first one wasn't south enough. And so then we had a north-south meeting that was south of the Northland. The only thing we're pointing out is there was not a meeting in the Northland. That's it.
Well-
We don't have to argue about it. It's just that's the truth. I think
It wasn't
Llewellyn just
across
said
the
that.
river, it was
It
for
wasn't
the
in the Northland. And
Madam
make sure it's
Chair.
Yes.
I know we're gonna process this away, but I think that what's coming up is in the context of the conversation, it seems as if there would have been a meeting far up north, that somehow there would have been better representation of people in the Northland to give comments. But I can remember us all in this second round saying we wanted to hear, particularly Chris, you and others, saying, I want to hear what people have to say about the Northland split. And we did hear that. It might not have been the testimony that many of us was hoping for, but we did. The second thing is, Greg Clyce is maybe a mile, if that, from City Hall. And most of the business, when people have to come down from the Northland, from the Central, from the South, the meetings happen here. So if folks like this, these were 3 meetings, not neighborhood meetings. These were the 3 Kansas City redistricting meetings that happened in 3 different locations, or 2 different locations. This is not a neighborhood meeting where it has to be geographically place-based. It was opportunities to have the same meeting in 2 to 3 different spaces. And I'm bringing that back up because I think folks will walk away saying, well, we didn't get. No, we gave 2 opportunities for folks to engage in addition to coming here, in addition to sending an email, in addition to probably calling whoever you want to, because certainly I got a lot of calls. So I think that's important as we talk about equity, as we talk about transparency, to highlight that this is not about a district having its own meeting. That's not what this is.
Right, because there could be other arguments about how it wasn't deeper or less south and more central for the South people. The point is, I want to be careful for each of our commissioners to not discredit the process, as each of you have had fingerprints on this process. And this kind of leads me to, and I'll call for a vote before I go into this. But when we begin to think about our task and what we have been asked to do. I think one of my biggest thoughts as I was asked to chair this committee is to ensure that it would be a space where we would be able to have honest dialogue, that people would be able to disagree without becoming disagreeable, that we would have a transparent process. And I am extremely encouraged by how each of you have done your part to ensure that that is true. All the way down to the 5 in-person community meetings, understanding that a process that is normally 9 months was condensed to 13 weeks, that we still made room for 5 in-person sessions, in addition to quickly erecting a web page. Thank you to the communications team for ensuring that a web page with all type of resources and ways for people to give feedback, in addition to each of you giving more than just your one day a week to this commission meeting, that you also gave time to attend various community meetings. And so thank you all for being able to ensure that voices have been heard. And I want to remind those of us, because as we said, many of us will find ourselves at the end of this process, or at least the end of our role in this process, feeling disappointed. But feeling disappointed is different than feeling unheard. And so I want to distinguish that while it may not be exactly what you wanted, and I think many of you all said that at some point everyone may be a little disappointed, that does not mean that your thoughts weren't heard and considered. But trusting that each of these commissioners have come together, this multidisciplinary, cross-functional, and multi-identity team has come together to leverage our brain trust, our experience, and our expertise to present redistricting lines to the council. And that is what has happened throughout this process. So with that, I will call for a vote. We will, I'll take a motion, and we can do it for both and see how the numbers, or there can be a motion for one particular, whichever one. And Melissa's not here. I don't know if we have any recommendation from our city attorneys. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I have a motion, Madam Chair. I will move that we adopt 8.4.3, at least make a preliminary adoption of 8.4.3 as the recommendation of this commission to the city for adoption for the new boundaries that are required by city charter.
And is there a clarification that it is map 1208?
Yeah, okay, 8.4.3 with the 1208 to District 4 and 1301 to District 3.
Thank you
Is that
so
the
much.
right?
Yes. Is there, okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of map 8.4.3, 1208 to D4 and 1301 to D3, please raise your hand. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm noting 6. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. No abstentions. Okay. Thank you. So, by majority, not unanimous, but majority, we have 8.4.3, 1208 to D4 and 1301 to D3. I will ask each commissioner, first of all, thank you for that. That deserves its own pause and period. Thank you all very much. I will ask that for our goal for next week, December the 1st, our task is to prepare for our presentation. As I've been asked to offer that presentation, I have extended that invitation to each of you to join me in that as we share our recommendation to the council. And with that, if you're able to join, I do not have the final date or the date that will be. We talked about the week of December the 7th. That has not been confirmed. As soon as I get that, I will share it with you all so you can confirm your attendance as you have each worked hard So I'd love for you to be a part of that. But I will ask that you be prepared next week. And if you could send it to me in advance with your points of your, and I'm titling them, and you can kind of do it as what makes sense to you, but I'm titling them rationale and considerations, meaning what is the rationale for 8.4.3, and then what are the considerations. I'm doing this because like I said, I think it is our responsibility as people who are sitting at the table to make sure that we accurately, as best we can, represent what we have heard. And I want to make sure I'm also including our commissioners who have given great effort and who have voted against this map to be able to articulate what your considerations are that you would like for the council to consider. In addition to the rest of us, that we know that this is, that we all have perhaps some concerns.
So do you mean you want points of opposition or?
Yes.
Okay.
Things that we want the council to consider or to be aware of.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And this might be for next week, but there are two things that I just want to have clarification on.
Please.
The first is maybe from legal to tell us what's the process, like, you know, they get this map, does the city council have to go with this, like, what happens after that in that process? Just so that we're clear when people are asking us. The second is maybe taking some time at our next meeting and talk about most boards and commissions speak with one voice, whether you're on whatever side, whatever carries forward, that's how we represent. And I say that's important. If we're not going to be speaking with one voice, that we understand that in that way is clear and transparent. For instance, during this process, a lot of people said, hey, why is it that the 3rd and the 5th district only has one representative, but 6 has 2 representatives, sub-district 2? And we were able to manage that by saying, hey, everyone here is appointed by the mayor. Everybody's thinking in the best interest of Kansas City. It is not about each council district having to have the same number. You know, like, we were able to message that versus us leaning in to say, oh, the 4th district has this and everybody else, why didn't 3 and 5? So the same way as if we want a city to get behind the map that we're recommending, is this to speak with one voice or is it not? It's like, hey, this is what the majority wanted, but this is what I disagree with. So I just need clarity for myself.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that question, and I'll ask if the city is prepared to share about that, to do that. But it would be my expectation that we would speak with one voice about our recommendation to the city, that these things can be possible where we can speak to the high mark of what we believe is best for Kansas City while also acknowledging what the challenges have been. So that would be my recommendation, as that we continue the behavior that we have displayed in this process with being thoughtful, supportive, and focusing on collective impact. So that would be my expectation. Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, can we ask that they have somebody from communications here at the meeting next week to help us craft that message as we try to go about getting that, putting our points in support? And also, can we also, at that next meeting, address the recommendation that the Charter Review Commission be appointed and the reasons, rationale for that too? Shouldn't that all be included in the report? I know Melissa's gone, so I don't know if Kyle's filling in for that or.
Yeah, we'll be. So that seed.
They indicated before that we could have some staff support for
Yeah.
that. I thought they indicated.
That seed has already been planted. That's why I'm asking you all to have a prepared, and Matt, I'm getting to you, thank you, that for you all to share your prepared thoughts about considerations and rationale for the map. I will say that our attempt to, I doubt that we will have our presentation complete by the end of our meeting on the 1st. What I want to do is collect you all's considerations and ideas. Our planning team will continue to work together, and we'll be following, and we'll be really greatly supported by the city in creating that. As best I am able to get that out, as I do with other meetings to prepare. I mean, yeah, as I support you all in preparing for our other meetings, I'll get that out to you so you can have some eyes on it. But I'll be working with the city staff team to create the final presentation. So if you all can come prepared with that, because I want to make sure that your input is part of the process. Matt?
Anticlimactic. I was just going to address the first issue, right?
Yes.
What's council obligated to do?
bluntly nothing, right? It's their decision. You guys are an advisory body. They're not beholden to your outcome here, although I wouldn't say that historically, I wouldn't say the commission has had no merits relative to the map that council eventually adopts. They're not legally obligated.
Thank you.
Great. Cal, did you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the timeline was, so we had talked. I put together bare bones, but I assumed you guys would be doing the conversation. So basically, I just put some stuff together. I can run through it real quick, or I can send it to you and you can craft it. I'm sure as it goes to schedule, what everybody would prefer to do.
Well, we're here at 6 o'clock. However, I do appreciate you providing a sight line to at least give some insight into what it'll look like. I'll ask you not to go deeply into it, but simply talk about the components of it, so that our commissioners can be encouraged about what they can bring. And
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Whatever the date happens to be, who the teams are, and all this is up to the quick language. Just wanted you guys to have something, since it's quick turnaround, that you could craft from. Guiding principles, I need to run this by law and make sure that that's accurate. I took your stuff and paraphrased it a great deal to fit on a slide. When we met, why it was compressed, what additional things we did to make sure engagement was part of it. Other things we considered, your priorities, which you guys will probably want to add to, and then data. And that's where you would start talking about the maps. I don't know what else you would add, but just wanted to give you guys something to work from.
Well, I think it's important that, and that's one of the reasons why I hope we have some professional writers here, or somebody that could put this in the right tone, is that we make it clear that this is not any attempt to punish anybody or to hurt any sector of the city. I'm a little concerned about this negative stuff I'm hearing, like this is that we teamed up on the Northland, or that we're trying to hurt the Northland. I heard that in some of the private meetings I have with people, and I've read it in some of the public stuff that I've seen. And it's just not. It's certainly not a motivating factor. That's not been conveyed anywhere around this table. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of difference of opinion as to what's in the best interest of the city and what the best configuration is. So I think it's very important that we
And
we
those
address
would be
that.
the components. Those will be the points that I'm looking for you all to be prepared to share. And that's why I'm asking you all to put those considerations and points down, so that we can figure out what is the collective voice, kind of going back to what Dr.
When you
Hill
look at
was
this, it was a super majority, 6 out of 9, but we had Northlanders who supported the configuration. We had Northlanders who opposed it. We had Southlanders who support the configuration. We had Southlander who opposed it. We had blacks and whites on both sides. I mean, this is
That's right.
a very open, diversity of our city. It was a fair process.
Absolutely.
So-
Matt, did you have something to add?
Real quick on that slide there, in the report, obviously, you all referred to the memo I produced at the beginning, which is really kind of your legal navigational beacons, right? But you all have developed that criteria that you've used to make those decisions beyond the scope of the 10% rule or Voting Rights Act compliance. And so I think, Kyle, you had a slide deck on there on the other criteria, the other things that they prioritized. I think that's critically important, I think, as an export. Second, I think it's important to the commission to memorialize the facts that you've elicited in the testimony that drove those decision points. And so you want to make sure that those two things find their way in your final report. Best suggestion I have.
Well, we appreciate that. All right. With that, once again, team, I want to thank you. Thank you for how we have grappled out loud and how we've been able to hopefully demonstrate discourse without being disagreeable, and how we've been able to lead with curiosity and allow curiosity to be our lubricant for change. Thank you each for the work. We have our meeting next Wednesday. We get back to our Wednesday time for old time's sake, our last one, December the 1st from 4 to 6. Where we'll be looking to hear, if you can send me your points of articulation prior to that. That'll be really helpful, because we might be able to go ahead and embed it so that we can kind of run through it and kind of not have to practice through it, but just kind of see where it will fit in it. So if you can get those sent to me. Today is Monday. We have a holiday. So if you can send them by Monday, does that feel reasonable? By next Monday?
I started a week
The holiday weekend, I don't think so.
ago.
Well, please know that December 1st is our time. Yes, Matt?
Madam Chair, when doing so, please make sure you copy Melissa. To
Thank
make sure
you.
Staff has a copy of all those comments.
Thank you so much.
Avoid reply alls and.
That's right. Since, hence send them to me and CC Melissa on that, so we won't have a reply all chain. All right.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, can I just echo people's thanks to the staff again? I know all these guys, this is not their only job. They have
That's
all
right.
their regular duties on top of this, and they've been incredibly responsive and helpful, and Brian and Beth and Kyle and attorney's office and communications office has really been a great support to people who need the data to make sense of this. And I want to thank you for your leadership on this as an excellent chair for something as crazy as this can be. Did a good job.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. That's high praise coming from someone as skilled and as seasoned into this work. So I really appreciate that. Hey, it is 6:07. Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.
Vouchers are here.
Oh, look at that. Looking us up.